there a motion to suspend the rules so that we can conduct this meeting via Zoom?
I move to suspend the rules to allow us to conduct this meeting utilizing the Zoom software system in lieu of an in-person meeting and in accordance with the governor's prior directives related to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Have to call the roll.
Okay, call the roll then, please. Johanna?
Alderman Fisk,
Yes.
Alderman Nguyen,
Aye.
Alderman Wilson,
Aye.
Alderman Simmons, Alderman Sufferton,
Aye.
Alderman Ravel,
Aye.
and Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Okay, is the next item on the agenda the approval of minutes?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and these are the,
I move we approve the minutes of the last,
April 26th.
thank you, the P&D meeting of April 26th.
Second.
any changes or additions? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We still have to call the roll.
Okay, all right, Johanna, please.
Councilmember Fisk,
Yes.
Councilmember Nguyen,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson,
Aye.
Councilmember Sufferton, Councilmember Ravel,
Aye.
and Councilmember Rainey.
Aye.
Johanna, what is the feedback that we're getting?
It's Anderson. Anderson, I can't mute. I don't have capacity to mute right now. If you want to pause, I can ask for somebody to fix it.
Johanna, this is Luke. I
Hey, Luke.
think someone might be dialed in twice. Like they might be on the web and also have their phone or something like that. And if everyone could mute themselves when they're not speaking, that would be helpful too.
It's coming up as Anderson. The square on Anderson lights up on my computer when that happens. So
And mine too.
Okay.
Is that just happening when I'm speaking? Could someone else speak, please?
Hello?
Judy, it was happening when you and Don were speaking.
But especially when you're speaking.
Yes.
Well, that's fun. Okay,
You're okay now.
it sounds like,
You're
okay, that's great. Thank you, Luke, for whatever you've done. All right, again, I'm sorry, I do not have an agenda and apparently can't get access to one, so,
Would you like me to read the first item?
pardon me?
Would you like me to read the first item?
I would, thank you very much.
Sure. Item P1, Ordinance 53021, amending portions of the City Code to extend the expiration date of permitted uses within the U2 zoning district. Staff is recommending adoption of the ordinance amending the City Code to extend the expiration date of permitted uses within the U2 zoning district from December 31st, 2021 to December 31st, 2022. This relates to Northwestern's uses.
Scenes again in the press today, whether or not the council is even legitimate in taking actions before the next council is sworn in. They should have been sworn in at 4:30 and taken over at that time, according to the press releases that I'm saying. So it's kind of an illegitimate action, the way it reads. And, members of the council who are outgoing, should not take this last action, considering it's probably an illegal action on their parts. And those who are staying on the council should really just kind of walk out of this meeting and protest. That's my comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Johanna, now please remind me, going back to the agenda item that Alderman Wilson read. Is there anyone else signed up to speak on that agenda item?
There's nobody else signed up to speak on P1, but we
Okay.
do want to read it back in for a motion in a second, just to be clear.
Let me just make sure that there's no one else signed up to speak on general agenda items. And why is my video showing up on Anderson Castillo's live view?
That's the view in the council chambers. So it's what's being seen.
Oh, all right. Okay. All right.
Okay. All right, I'll be happy to reread it. I apologize. Okay, P1, Ordinance 53-021, amending portions of the city code to extend the expiration date of permitted uses within the U2 zoning district. It's a recommendation that the council adopt Ordinance 53-021 to amend the city code to extend the expiration date of the permitted uses within the U2 zoning district from December 31st, 2021 to December 31st, 2022. It is for introduction, and as a reminder, this was in front of the committee last time. It did not advance out of the committee, so I had made a reference that this, and it was for 2 years, I made a reference that we consider this for a 1-year extension. And also as a reminder, introduction means that it's first reading tonight, so if there is action taken on this or the subsequent item, it would be the subsequent council, so it's not the current council who would be voting on this in any event. So these are just being introduced, and the council that will be sworn in will be the ones who will actually vote on whether or not to take action on it, just to clarify that. So I move that we approve this ordinance.
Second.
Okay, is there further discussion on this? Alderman Ravel?
As usual on this item, as I've said on numerous occasions, I do think this proposed amendment is not a good idea. I know a 2-year or a 1-year pilot sounds like a reasonable step, but Northwestern could use the pilot events as precedent in arguing for additional and bigger events in the future. And indeed, if you look at the past history of efforts by Northwestern to use the athletic campus for professional events, that has happened in the past where Northwestern has, contrary to Evanston zoning, held such events and then used those events to argue as a precedent for further events. So even just as a pilot, it's not a wise idea. It's and allowing professional sports and for-profit events would undermine the protections that our zoning code promises to our residents. So I urge the committee again to vote no.
Anyone else? Okay, then we'll take a vote. We need a roll call vote. Johanna, could you call the roll?
Councilmember Fisk?
Yes.
Councilmember Wynn?
No.
Councilmember Wilson?
Aye.
Councilmember Rue Simmons?
Aye.
Councilmember Suffredin?
No.
Councilmember Ravel?
No.
Councilmember Rainey?
Aye.
That's 4-3 in favor of moving forward for introduction.
Okay, so that goes on for introduction at council tonight. The next item on the agenda, could someone please read that?
I'll read it. Ordinance 54-021. Our staff is recommending that the city council consider this ordinance, amending the tree preservation ordinance to expand protection of trees on private property. There is currently no capacity to implement and administer the revised tree preservation ordinance due to lack of staff resources in the Public Works Agency and Community Development Department. Staff recommends inclusion of an effective date in 2022 that is also contingent on the addition of new staff resources for the 2022 budget to Public Works Agency that will support the implementation of this ordinance. I move introduction.
Second.
Okay, are there comments on this. If not, I have some. So Johanna, can you please explain what staff requirements are necessary here and why it would require a full-time staff member to oversee this? How many applications do we get that would affect heritage trees of this caliber each year, roughly?
Well, I'm going to ask Dave Stonebeck to jump in here as well. But I think where the staff memo highlights that we would have it's not necessarily just the trees that are impacted, it's that we would require a tree survey for projects of a certain size that would then, the project would have to go through a process and we would have to review to determine if there was the presence of a tree that would have to be preserved. So that process unto itself is why we are suggesting that we would need the staff resources to review it.
Okay, well, let me, if I could just take one more second here to ask another question. Why couldn't it be simplified that when a property owner submits their plans, they include the placement and caliber of trees on their property that they, in fact, can measure themselves? I just don't understand why it gets this complicated. Can you explain? Is there a legal I'm going to let Dave explain that, because when it comes to trees, it never is quite simple in terms of them being able to measure the trees, the tree species, how much we get so many questions already for basic applications for things in planning and right-of-way permits that seem pretty straightforward, but they're not, and they take up a pretty significant staff bandwidth to respond to.
Good evening, council members. Dave Stonebeck, Public Works Agency Director. We're just concerned with the number of potential permits. Potentially there's over 400 permits that could come in that somebody would have to review and administer. And then if you issue the permit, you have to issue the permit. If you don't issue the permit, you're going to have to respond to the residents as to why not. So it's just not a matter of receiving a piece of paper and filing it. You have to interact with the community members that are requesting this type of information. That's just for the building permits. There are other situations in which people may want to remove a tree on their own private property that hasn't anything to do with a building. It's just they want to remove that tree, and if it's over a certain diameter, then we have to issue a permit for that as well. So our current staff is really backlogged on tree issues already. This year, we've responded to over 360 311 requests on tree issues. We've issued 49 parkway tree permits and 5 parkway tree permits. So just adding more work can't be absorbed by our current staff.
Okay, is Erica on the call by any chance? Erica? There you are. What is the reasonable likelihood that we will have funding in the upcoming budget to hire a staff person to do this?
I would say it is not something we would be able to determine at this point in time, given that we have a new council starting and uncertainty around what their priorities may be and if this would be something that they would want to fund or not.
Okay, so that was the basis for staff's recommendation that this be put on hold until January and then probably not effective until March. Is that correct, of next year?
Right. I mean, if the position were to be approved and funded, we would have to then recruit for it and anticipate some frame of time before that person would start.
Okay, I'd like to hear from other folks on the committee on what they think. This is an important part of our climate resiliency plan, and we should be able to figure out a way to do this, given the concern in the community about the removal of our very largest heritage trees. I think there's broad community support. I was wrong not to ask if there was anyone signed up who wanted to speak. Any citizen comment on this? Johanna, is there?
There's no public comment for anyone signed up for public comment for this item.
Okay. So I guess I would like to hear from the rest of the committee on this. Alderman Wilson?
Thank you. I do believe that it is a significant concern in the community. So, and to the point of, the fact that this is just kind of starting out, it is for introduction. I feel like we should introduce it. And again, the subsequent council will be taking action on it. So I think it probably doesn't warrant too much discussion here because a number of us won't be here, but rather give them the opportunity to, get more fully informed and then more able them to make their decision at a little bit down the road.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Alderman Rainey?
Exactly what he said.
Alderman Nguyen?
Well, I'm a very strong supporter of trees, but I also think that we need to apply an equity lens to this and make sure that it isn't just someone who can buy their way out of keeping a tree. And I mean, that's a really important part of this that when it was drafted, I don't think was applied to this. And we need to look at that, look at any tree ordinance from that standpoint. I'd like to have more work done in this. I'd be willing to introduce it and maybe hold it in committee, but then ask the staff to do more work on it in terms of figuring out what the right staffing would be, when our budget is better, and then also applying an equity lens to make sure that it's not just the folks who can pay the price who can take down the tree. I mean, I think we need to look hard at saying that some of our trees there is no exemption unless the tree is dead, irredeemable.
Mm-hmm. Alderman Simmons?
Thank you, Alderman Fisk. Thank you, Alderman Nguyen, for bringing that point up. I completely agree with equity being centered around this discussion with the future, with more work from staff and more buy-in or weigh-in actually from the future committee and council. And then another important resource that's going to be available soon is a asset map or a environmental asset map that is being prepared by Environmental Justice Evanston, along with possibly staff and some others in that community. So if we could have that resource available as it's being considered, I think that would be ideal.
Yes, Alderman Rainey?
Well, I think as we look at this, or as the new council, and Alderman Nguyen sounds like she probably will play a leadership role here, but as we look at this through an equity lens, I think there needs to be a fund to support those cases where a person cannot afford to deal with trees. So I'm not sure we should just bypass those situations, but actually have a fund to support them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, next we'll have, yes, Alderman Ravel.
Well, just to second a lot of what's been said already, so where is the best place to hold it for this additional staff work? Would it be better to hold it, table it, and keep it in planning and development so we can get, these further details worked out? Rather than sending it on to council? I'm just a question.
I would
Maybe
prefer
Alex could weigh in on that.
No.
Sorry.
Good evening, Madam Chair, council members, Alex Ruggie, Assistant City Attorney. So I think our best bet would be to hold it in committee and perhaps to a date certain, just so this doesn't fall off. And that way staff can know when they can come back and present on the recommendations made here tonight.
Alderman Nguyen?
Well, if we held it in committee, I think the question is, what's the date certain? And I think that it won't be until, as the staff has indicated, later on in the year that they'll have a good understanding of what the budget's going to look like and what resources we might have available to apply to it. And we want to give the new council a little bit of time to understand the issue, although I think some of them already do. So what if we looked at 6 months from now? Holding it to that date. Is that permissible? Oh, go ahead, Alderman. Oh, sorry.
6 months sounds like a longer time than we need, because that would push it up towards the very end of the year. So,
how about 3 months from now?
Because I would hope that we would be giving, the new council would be giving direction into the budget, well in advance, like in early fall, to make sure that we have the funds for the staff person. So I would say, could we bring it back in September?
Yeah. So if I made a motion to bring this back to the first meeting in September, what do you think of that, Alderman Revelle?
I think that sounds good to me.
Ms. Nyden, do you think that's enough time for staff, or do you need a little bit more time? Maybe the first meeting in October?
I would say not the first meeting in September, because that is always historically a very jam-packed meeting. It doesn't yield for good time for discussion. So I would either recommend, like usually a second meeting in the month is a better meeting for those sorts of discussions.
Yep. So second meeting in September.
Yeah, with all deference to you folks who are going to be remaining on the council, I think moving this to council and tabling it to council, if that's what you decide to do, sort of underscores the importance of this. This is not just a staff hiring issue. This is a larger, more important issue than just that. And I mean, you can do what you want, but I would very much prefer that it move along so that we can send the message to the community that this is something that is a priority for the city to be able to protect these trees. The other point that I will say for the record is that I am concerned in section 6 when we talk about the $100 fee, that it includes an application along with any consultant review fees incurred by the city in processing the tree permit application. I think that is so vague and so would be so troubling to anyone that I would again just like to put in the record that I don't agree with that. And I would hope that we have a permit fee, but that's the end of the cost to the particular homeowner. And then finally, I will say that Natural Habitat Evanston really stepped up to create a fund so that we could inoculate all of the elms. You remember during last budget season. So the community really has stepped forward to indicate the priority to them of maintaining our healthy tree canopy. And as much as we have a lot of trees in this town, we don't have very many of these huge old heritage trees, and they are under threat. So I don't want this to fall into just a staffing issue. I think we really need to say that this is a larger issue than just staffing. Yes, Alderman Nguyen.
Yes, Madam Chair, what if we had a report back midsummer and with the idea that we are holding this until the second meeting in September, which looking at my calendar is September 27th, but the requirement that Mr. Stoneback and Mr. Kano come back in midsummer in July and give us a report on progress report on what they're doing. Because I think that it should be worked on here in the committee rather than being sent to the full council.
Okay. Does everyone agree with that? Basically, anyone who disagrees? Everybody? Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Well, I can create that. I can change that into a formal motion. So I move that this item be held in committee until September 27th, but that staff return to the committee at the second meeting in July with a progress report.
Second.
Okay, Johanna, will you take the roll on that? Anyone want to speak to that motion? Okay, Johanna?
Councilmember Fisk,
No.
Councilmember Nguyen,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson,
Aye.
Councilmember Rusinen,
Aye.
Councilmember Suffredin,
Aye.
okay, thank you. Councilmember Ravel,
Aye.
Councilmember Rainey.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay. Is that the end of our agenda? Could someone tell me? Okay. So that completes our agenda. No one else has signed up to speak. Again, I don't even know what time it is. So City Council will begin at 4:05 right now. Can we begin council at 4:10 or 4:15?
I believe it's
noticed for
posted.
4:30.
It's posted for 4:30? Okay, then we'll be back at 4:30. Okay, thank you everyone very much.
Thank you.
You.